This episode of The Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by Harrogate Springwater. Famous for its waters since 1571, Harrogate is Britain's premium natural source water. Hello all! You are listening to the Capsule in Conversation podcast. I'm Natalie Anderson, and today I'm joined by the First Lady of Wellbeing, Liz Earle, to talk how to find true balance, the importance of giving back, and the simple steps to calm. So for the first time in this brand new season, make yourself comfortable and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all, welcome back to a brand new series, Season 7. It is so lovely to have you all with us. Hope you're all well and have had a gorgeous summer. Ours was jam-packed and full of adventure, so now I'm ready for a little bit of coziness and calm and to regain a bit of balance. Now, thankfully, my very special guest today is an expert at creating a wholesome, healthy environment to protect your well-being, having published over 36 books on varying topics including beauty, health, menopause, and nutrition. She's also the namesake and the co-founder of one of the biggest natural beauty companies in the world. An active philanthropist, recognised by the Queen for her charity work alongside her entrepreneurial prowess, she is the incredible Liz Earle. Hi, Liz.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for that. So lovely to be here. I'm not sure if I can live up to all of that, but I'm going to try in our conversation.
Well, I'm sure you will. So my mum's worked in beauty for years on counter. And when I said, like, of all the guests that I've had, when I said, oh, Mum, we've got Liz Earle, she was literally like beside herself. And as was I as well, because I think what's so lovely about you, and you've got this on your Instagram, is that you are there to help women of all ages from varying different things. And one of the original pioneers, I think, of getting well-being into the mainstream, first appearing on This Morning over 30 years ago. Where did that interest stem from?
Well, my first job was in magazines as a junior in the beauty department. So that's going back more than 35 years. And it was at a time when natural health and well-being was just really being discussed. And I was sent off as the new kid to go and interview nutritionists and complementary therapists. And I had very bad skin at the time. I had a real struggle with eczema. And, I have 5 children. They all have inherited that, unfortunately. So we managed that quite well as a family. So it was when I first came across a naturopath who said I could change my skin by changing my diet, not skincare, but actually what goes on the inside. That for me was a massive light bulb moment. And I've been writing about health and nutrition and well-being ever since. And it's kind of the wellness world has caught up. My first book, Vital Oils, was published 30 years ago about the importance of oil and fat in the diet, which at the time was counterculture. It was all about having low-fat yogurts and no fat. And actually, we need fat. We need good fat. So I'm very glad that the pendulum has swung back a bit.
Completely. And as you just said then, my best friend, when she had her 2 little girls, they both suffered with eczema because they had allergies to egg. And she went off and did her own research. But everybody said at the time, like nearly 20 years ago, that it was all a bit hippy dippy. And it was like, go to the doctor, you can get a steroid cream for that. But she was absolutely adamant. She's like, I have checked everything in their diet and it's every time they have egg. But as you say, finally, we're kind of catching up. But, you be like spearheading this movement back in the 90s. And I know obviously in the 90s, like I was growing up in the 90s and there was this whole kind of Primrose Hill set and, Kate Moss and everything was kind of coming to the fore within the wellness business. And at that time, you co-founded the Liz Earle Beauty Company with your friend Kim in 1995. But I think, being one of the first big beauty companies that really looked after kind of cruelty-free and all natural, at the time when you had the big Estee Lauders and the other big massive companies, the American companies that were just additives and everything. What were your goals at the time with it?
Well, it's a really interesting question. And I think you do need to rewind the clock a little bit because Kim and I set up the beauty company, it must be over 25 years ago now. And neither of us are connected in any way anymore. Obviously now the brand was sold back in 2010. But when we set it up, it was really because there was a gap in the market, and you either had the big brands, the big global corporate brands, and that were sold behind counters, and it was all a bit scary to go and talk to these beautiful sales consultants, or you had mass market. You went into a supermarket or a high street chemist and you picked up a jar of something that was produced in some German factory and sold for not very much, and there was nothing really in between. It's hard to imagine that now, because now we have so many amazing niche brands. And literally, my job now is editing my Liz Earle Wellbeing magazine is I get sent so many things. There's a new beauty range literally lands on my desk almost every day. But back then that wasn't the case, and I really felt very strongly that I wanted to use potent botanicals in a dose that made a difference in a really simple way, and sell it at a good price. And so we did mail order, and actually mail order back then was again, it was very new. We used to get envelopes with these things called checks inside and we would process the letter, and you'd get a little cutout coupon in a magazine or something that you'd fill in your name and address and send it off to the Isle of Wight, and then we'd send the package out. So it was all quite groundbreaking, and then obviously it went online, and it all changed and went retail as well.
I mean, what were your favorite products? I mean, for me, like whenever I'm thinking of you guys, my favorite product of all time is the hot cloth cleanser. And whenever I've done a show, it's just the best. And like when I've been working in the theatre, it's the one thing I go to immediately rebalance me after a show. Just the oils, the smell, everything. Yeah. Talk to me about how you developed that.
So, I mean, using a cloth is not new. Yeah. I didn't invent that. And, it's been used, people have used muslin cloths and silk cloths, particularly in Japan, for centuries, if not thousands of years. And it's a very gentle way of exfoliating the skin. And I think what everything I try to do is as keeping life in balance as much as possible. And just using a cream that doesn't foam on the skin, doesn't disrupt the skin. And like you, I love it. I'm super proud of it. It's almost like my sixth child. I'll probably have a gravestone in the shape of a cleansing.
I've actually got that as a question to say to you. Is it like your sixth child literally here?
It is. And, since the company's been sold, I don't think the formulation's changed. It's still there. I still use it every day. Literally, I've just used it. I've been in the gym. I've just used it on my face just now. But other things have come in, and I think it's a very interesting time in beauty. So, for example, as I age, I now use lots of other things like retinols, for example, and I take supplements specifically for my skin. I use niacinamide, I use vitamin C serums, I use laser and light technology. These things weren't around when Kim and I were starting the beauty company. Otherwise, we would probably be doing that now ourselves too.
But you've definitely spearheaded that movement, though, because, again, being in a similar space, I see through my work that a lot of the women that I speak to on Instagram or that have built beauty companies, they are doing back how you did it, mail order. So they're doing things where they're creating things at home, creating all natural products. And that kind of model it started with you, really, and kind of making that kind of business. And there's one of the quotes that I've seen from you, which is amazing. Your working mantra has always been, build it slow to build it strong, crawl, walk, then run to build a business that will stand the test of time. Yeah. And that's so true, isn't it? Because so many people go out there and try to be fast and furious and create like something that's hot, but to stick around, you really need to build foundations.
Absolutely. That is one of my favorite expressions. And I tell that to my children now, particularly because I think there is the feeling in today's young entrepreneurs that it's all got to happen immediately. If somebody doesn't like your post within seconds, you're panicking about it. And I guess I grew up where we used to, write letters to people and wait for replies. And, there is that sort of slowness to it. And I think if you can put down really strong, solid foundations, that is going to stand you in good stead when stuff happens, because, let's face it, stuff inevitably does happen and you need to be secure. It's like, being secure in your relationship, or being secure in, physically secure in your body, or, or building your house on rock rather than on sand. So, yes, I think if something's worth doing, obviously it's worth doing well. And that means that it's going to take time and effort. And, somebody once said to me that it takes decades to become an overnight sensation. And that is really true. It's all that prep work that takes you there for suddenly people to go, oh my goodness, you're suddenly doing this. And I'm like, well, no, actually I've been doing it for 35 years.
It's exactly that, even in like the acting industry, you work and work and work and work, and then it might be that one thing that you land in your 40s or whatever. It's like, oh, they're an overnight sensation. It was like, well, no, they were doing rep and they were doing all kinds of different theatre. Exactly. And it's the same in the beauty space. Like I said to you earlier, my mum worked on the counters. I worked on counter as well for years, from being 16, 17. So my love for beauty has been growing and growing, and wellness, and this entry into this space didn't just happen overnight. But I do listen to women that have forged incredible businesses, and even when you've got those moments where you think, oh, what am I doing, you have to work through that, don't you? Like you say, if you've got passion for it and you feel there's a purpose. It
has to be. I love those two words, passion and purpose. They go together so well. So first off, passion. If you're not passionate about it, please don't do it, because it will become all consuming and it will take so much time and money and effort and thought. And you have to be passionate. And also passion persuades, people get carried along with you because they can see how much it matters, and the authenticity and the trust that comes with that. And I think purpose is so important. I'm actually writing a book for next year about how to have a better second half of life. And a big part of that, this is probably a bit of a scoop actually, is all about purpose. Because you think, why am I getting up in the morning? What's it all about? What does it all mean? And I think for so many of us, as we age, we've come out of dreadful years of lockdown and having, our freedoms curtailed, thinking, how do I want to live my life? What is my purpose? What is my legacy as well? What am I going to hand on? Is the world a better place for me having been here? And I think hopefully we will all want to tick that box, and that happens with purpose.
I think as well that's really important for women as well. I mean, obviously it's important for men, but I think with women, whether you've had children or not, you get to a certain point in your life. I mean, I'm turning 41 this year, and even I'm now starting to feel it only because my son's going to secondary school next year. And I've all of a sudden had the flutter of, oh my God, we had to fill in his form. It's not going to be that long and he's going to be going. And I'm trying to get everything I possibly can, because I've suddenly thought it's not going to be long. And then what is my purpose? I know I've got a business and I know all that, but my purpose as his mummy is going to disappear quite quickly.
Oh, I don't know, Natalie. I don't know. So my eldest is 31, Lily, and she was here this weekend. And we had just such great chats and kind of life lessons. And I think you can impart knowledge. And I would hope that she would definitely say that I have a purpose in her life as to what I can share and discuss with her as a mother, not as a friend. I don't think mothers should necessarily be friends. You can obviously have a friendship, that's great, but your role is as a mother, and they only have one. So, step up and do that job properly. And as children get older, the issues and the things they want to talk about get bigger and even more important. You can't just drop them off for a play date somewhere and come back later and they'll be all happy because they've got a new balloon. It's very different. It's about, I don't know, sex, drugs, relationships, mortgages, jobs, life moves. So I think actually your role will become even more important than it is now.
I think that's so reassuring to hear, because literally I've had that little wobble over the weekend as we filled in the form, and honestly it's so reassuring to hear that. And you are right, I do talk to my mum about things and we have those conversations. And there's a lovely quote that you said about Lily that's talking about how you learn through your children and how she's taught you different things as well about how to see the world and where the world is at now.
So much yeah.
Something that I also love about you, Liz, is that, when you started the Liz Earle Beauty Company, you also allowed a budget for charity. And I know that charity work is so important to you. And a lot of those charities were charities that needed like woman to woman, female empowerment way before this movement. This is what I mean. It's like you spearheaded everything well before the movement. What was it that made you really want to work with those charities above everything else?
I think I do recognise that I'm very fortunate, and, a lot of doors have been opened to me. Obviously, I take the step to walk through them, but it's all about opportunity. And I think a lot of women, particularly in the world, don't have opportunity, whether it's with education, healthcare, even, you know, just basic things like having the right to vote or the right to have clean water. And I spent quite a lot of time in East Africa, in Kenya, and I started going on field trips there to source botanicals. My family have had a home there for many decades, and I still spend a lot of time there. And actually, I set up a humanitarian charity called Live Twice, which is all about offering opportunity. And if you have opportunity, then you have growth and you can make change. And I love getting involved with projects and charities and NGOs that make a difference, particularly to women. So, for example, I'm an ambassador for the Royal Osteoporosis Society and for ACE Africa, which is an African one, and the Soil Association. And oh my goodness, there are so many, I lose track actually. I've probably missed out a whole load. But the Menopause Charity was a recent one that I became an ambassador for. So I hope that I can just add my voice and platforms to help spread the word a bit. And actually, you know, they do say that it's better to give than to receive. And we know that, don't we, in our hearts? We know that when we do something for others, it comes back to us and we feel so good about it. And it's just part of our life. I guess it comes back to that word purpose, isn't it? It's part of who we should be.
And that's actually leads into one of the next questions I was going to say to you about that connection between mind and body, and actually doing good and receiving good, putting good in. It is such a key component of our overall well-being, because we can feed ourselves as much good nutrition as we want, but if we're actually not feeling, or, you know, again, that purpose, we feel out of sorts, we're still a bit out of kilter. You've got to kind of, you know, even if it's getting work in your community and
sure, volunteering.
It is so much of a connection, isn't it, for the heart and the head.
And it's about supporting others. And I think never more so, be more aware of that and the community effort that we've needed in the last couple of years to come together and support each other and look after each other. And actually, that is what really makes me sad sometimes, particularly on social media, when I see trolling and bullying and gaslighting. And, you know, Lily experienced that quite recently, actually. And I just think, you know, and it's often women against other women. And I just think, for heaven's sake, you know, where is your sense of self-worth and sisterhood? You know, life is tough and women should be building each other up, not knocking each other down. There's plenty of room for everybody. We can all be successful. My candle doesn't burn brighter, you know, because your candle is lit next to it. You know, I mean, we are the light that we hold within ourselves, each and every one of us. And we should just let each other flourish and be generous. And I just think we could all perhaps do with being a bit kinder and, you know, cutting some people some slack. You don't know what other people are going through, what they're suffering with. And I think with social media particularly, that's a particular danger.
Completely, definitely that. And you know, as you just said there about you never know what people are going through, moving away from the charity side of things, I was going through your Instagram, which I love anyway, but then you popped a picture on there with lovely Leslie Joseph, who I adore, who's
goodness,
she's so brilliant. And it was a picture of you in the pool with Leslie on the pool side being full on Dorian with a cocktail from, you know, a good few years ago, but and then the follow-up picture was a picture of you in an incredible red swimsuit looking incredible. And you were discussing how you felt in the first picture where you were actually submerged in the pool.
I was hiding under the water.
Yeah, hiding.
Yeah.
And that journey of how you've gone from, because people would have assumed that, you know, working in being the face of beauty and lifestyle, that you would have perhaps been more confident, but you didn't feel like that. And so how that journey that you've reached.
I guess, well, I think two things here. One, I didn't feel confident because I didn't actually look that great. And it was partly because I just had, I think, probably my third child back then. But I didn't really work out. I didn't exercise. I wasn't toned, not in the same way now. You know, my body is actually a better shape, tone-wise and strength-wise, in my 50s than it was in my 40s, let alone my 30s. And so I was just struck. I was flicking through some archive pictures, and Leslie and I had been filming, I think, for GMTV back somewhere like Jamaica or St. Lucia or somewhere. And I was just really struck. I was away on holiday this summer in Italy, and people were taking pictures by the pool. And I was just really cool about it. And I saw that picture, and I can remember the feeling of deliberately sinking down into the water when I saw the camera. And I was literally just sort of put my arms over the side of the pool so nobody could see. So I guess it's also about body confidence. I think we're much more aware these days that you don't have to be a skinny mini, and that health comes in lots of different sizes, as long as you keep your percentage of body fat down. I mean, I think we know that's a killer. Obesity is a killer. So I'm not saying that's a healthy way to be, but I think in terms of being bigger and firmer and stronger, I always talk about fitness and strength rather than slimness and weight.
With that strength, my husband's a PT, and the key thing he talks to me about all the time is lifting weights and strength.
Yes.
And we've had
mine this morning.
Yes, exactly. And he's like had me, doing deadlifts and squats and everything. And I remember at first being really put off with that age-old thing of going, but I look bulky, and it's just not the way. And especially as we age as women, and as we age, we do actually need to include strength training into our lifestyles, because it helps to retain the muscles and our bone structure much better. That's right, isn't it?
Definitely. We lose muscle mass as we age, and I didn't realize actually how much our kids suck out of us. 5% of calcium during pregnancy that they suck out to make their own little skeletons. And I've had 5 kids, so I'm 25% down. So I've got some serious catching up to do. But yes, you're absolutely right. Bone density, weight-bearing exercise, muscle mass, tone, helping to speed up your metabolism because you're burning fat faster, you're stronger, your immune system is better supported. And it doesn't take long. I don't have a huge amount of time, but I do have a few weights at home, literally at the end of my bed. And I'll do some weighted squats and some push-ups just using my own body weight pretty much every day, and then crack on with the day knowing that I've done something. And it makes a massive difference. And it's really important. If you can get into that habit, I wish I'd started in my 40s and not my 50s. But I think it's not too late. I intend to look better in my 60s than I do in my 50s.
But that's the thing. You start your journey whenever, you never get to that point where you go, oh, well, it's a bit late now. No, never. Just keep evolving and having that time to evolve, incorporate new things. I can't run like I used to. I'm still struggling to run now. So now I'm having to think of other things. But I'm enjoying weight training. I'm enjoying it. And also, like what you said, there's a confidence that comes from it. There's a confidence in strength, in physical strength, as well as emotional strength, I think.
Yes, knowing that you can pick things up, knowing that you can cope, and I think it does rebound into how you feel about yourself, knowing that you're fit and strong and resilient in every way, physically and mentally and emotionally. And I just love it because it's quick, it's and you get results. I'm sure your husband, will confirm that it doesn't actually take much to get going. So I would definitely, that is one of my key recommendations is to just buy a few weights.
Yeah. And, you've said you do have 5 children. How have you juggled business with being a mum, and what anchors have you needed to put in place to kind of be present in both spaces? Because it's really difficult. I only have one son, and I'm like, oh my God.
It is hard. And I think, my motto, I try and find balance in everything and say, if it's mostly good most of the time, then we're doing okay. It's about progress and not perfection. I try not to set impossible bars for myself or for others. But actually, to be fair, my kids are very spread out. There's 20 years between my eldest and my youngest. So I think, sometimes people say, 5 kids, how do you do it? But, they're not all grouped together. I have huge admiration for women who have their children, close together. So I had Lily and Guy, quite early on, and they're now, he's 29, she's 31. Then I've got Brella and Kit, who are 19 and 21. So they're another sort of 10 years further down. So I had the big ones to help with the little ones. And now my youngest has just turned 12. So they're a gang, they're a posse, and they look after each other, and they're hugely helpful. And I rely a lot on in remote working. It's been great particularly with my last child, because technology moved on so quickly. Being able to do stuff online was enormously helpful. But when Kim and I set up the beauty company, we both had young children, so we both understood that actually we needed to stop work at 3:00 and don't do the school run. We could pick up later in the evening after tea, bath and bed and all of that. So I think having business partners who understand where you are and will allow you to work around your family is also really important.
It's so inspirational, that, Liz, though, because again, you did that at a time when that wasn't the culture. The culture was hustle,
No.
hustle, 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 bigger, 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 faster, faster, faster. So for
Yeah.
you to actively be doing that, where you're prioritizing family, work-life balance, that we all strive for, is incredible, and still built this amazing business, which proved it could completely be done. And that, just to fight back and push back against that culture, because I'm seeing that coming back quite a bit now. I talked about it on my own on Instagram just recently, that since the pandemic, the hustle, it just seems to be seeping through a little bit, towards us all, where we're all a bit scared on social media. If we take a break, if you take a social media detox, will the world have changed?
But I also listened to your trail for this series, for the podcast, and you're saying you come back after your break, and we're all still here.
We're all still there. Yeah.
Have a bit more confidence and faith in yourself and in humanity, because actually, if you build something good, people will come, and if you have a great product, people will buy. It's not rocket science. It's, if you are doing something good, if you are producing something of value that people want and cherish and find helpful, then they're going to stay loyal to you. But if you don't, that's when you get the fly-by-nights who are just flip. Oh, I'll try that. Yeah, it was okay. Now I'm going to move on to something else. So it is all about, I think, quality rather than quantity or speed.
It's definitely that. I found that, and I was really reassured, and I felt like you said, having that confidence within what you've created to go, actually, no, I believe in it and I'm passionate about it. Coming back to that same word, moving on slightly, much of your work, you've covered the menopause, which again, until very recently has been quite a taboo. And we've talked a lot about it on this podcast, a lot, because personally for me, I'm really interested in it because I saw my mum go through quite a rocky time, and we had a difficult relationship at times because I couldn't understand what was going on with her, and I couldn't understand why she wasn't the forceful, powerful woman that I'd always seen her as. So I was impatient with her. So this is why I wanted to talk about it a lot more, to understand it. And it's great that it is coming into the fore now. But do you think that we really should be educating women much, much younger, like in their 30s, about this?
For sure. When I wrote my menopause guide book, the Good Menopause Guide, which was probably about 6 years ago now, this just shows you how much the landscape has changed. My publishers at the time were questioning whether we should have the word menopause on the cover, because they thought no woman was going to walk into a bookshop or order online something that had menopause written on it, and they wanted to call it something like The Secrets of Aging Well. And I said, forget that. It's about the menopause, so we're going to call it the Good Menopause Guide, okay? Oh. And so we have come a long way. I think we have to accept that actually it is, I remember doing a series with Lorraine on her show, and they called it the M word. It was still, what's the M word? Or you talk about the change. And I feel heartbroken for women of your mother's generation, and mine too, that didn't have better understanding. And there's still, as you say, a lot to be done. And one of the bit of work I do with the Menopause Charity is helping to educate GPs and practice nurses and doctors. There's an amazing free training module that all GPs or practice nurses or health practitioners can do from a company called 14 Fish that do a lot of online training for the NHS. It's called the Confidence in Menopause training program, and it's brilliant, and it really helps healthcare providers to look after women better. And it's really important that we know about it. As we've talked about, I've got 5 children, so I've had 5 sets of midwives, 5 sets of health visitors, 5 lots of prenatal, postnatal, 5 opportunities with gynaes and all of that to say, actually, do you know what, Liz? When you get into your 40s, maybe earlier, you will start to notice some changes. You might feel a bit different. You might sleep less well. You might feel more anxious. Your skin might change. You might have pelvic health issues. You might get more UTIs. Your joints might ache. All of these things, severe headaches, which in fact I did get in my 40s and didn't understand why. All of these things are because you're losing estrogen. Don't panic. Come back and chat to us and we'll sort you out. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. And it's just astonishing that women's health is so lacking, I think, in care and attention. And you see that right across the board, from budget constraints to the fact that drugs are tested on men and not women.
Yeah.
We've no idea what the action is of some of these drugs with a body full of estrogen rather than testosterone, because they weren't tested.
It is crazy. We've covered that before.
Really?
It's really absolutely mad that that's the situation. We did that actually with Mika Simmons. She was.
I love Mika.
Mika's brilliant, and we talked
good?
about that. And yeah, she's fantastic. And we did discuss that, because this is the thing that I feel very passionate about, is that. My friend called me a peri pusher because
I love it.
Because I'm like trying to push the perimenopause.
Yes, going Natalie,
because I'm
pusher.
like the peri pusher, because I'm going. They're saying, why are we talking about this in our conversations? So because we're at that age, we can't avoid it. We need to think about it.
You're so right. You cannot avoid it. This is not an optional extra. This is not a checkbox to say, oh, quite fine. So actually, do you know what? I'm going to give that a miss. This is going to happen to all women. If you are born biologically a woman, if you're producing estrogen, you're running on estrogen, then that will decline as you age. Unless, of course, you go into surgical menopause or you're having cancer treatment that has estrogen blockers. But for the majority of women who have, natural periods, you're running on estrogen and it's going to run out, honey. So let's make a plan.
That's it. That's exactly it. Let's make a plan. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, is being aware of these things. I'm getting so forgetful. I was having these conversations at work with the other women and I'm like, oh my God, so we're all feeling it. We're all the same age. We didn't have it before. There's definitely something in the water there. Do you know what I mean? Between us, we know what's going on. And therefore, having these very open and frank conversations so that we're not sat on our own thinking, am I going mad? Am I going crazy? Or having doctors say, well, you've got young children and you've got a very busy career, so maybe you're just a bit depressed.
Yes,
we're not depressed.
No. Antidepressants will do nothing for menopause-induced low mood and depression because they don't replace the estrogen that's causing it. And I think actually that's one of the issues that I have with our healthcare system. And I think I'm not GP bashing at all. Our GPs do an amazing job with incredibly low resources for the most part. But they have been trained to treat symptoms. So when somebody comes to them with a symptom, they're given a pill to fix it, rather than look at the underlying cause of what's actually creating that issue in the first place, which often is diet. If you look at diabetes and so many other conditions that can be helped with proper nutrition and lifestyle. But actually GPs aren't taught that. They don't get that at medical school. So, we can't blame them, but I think it is time to actually say, right, we need better training in certain areas. And I think women's health is certainly one of those areas, because half their patients are going to lose estrogen, half of them. How are you going to help them?
How are you going to help them? And also not kind of push them away or be frightened yourself of the conversation. For a lot of male doctors, we had Dr. Seher Rokehead on last year, and she said, you have to kind of, if you have to push and you have to say, I want to speak to whoever in your practice is the person that deals with women's health and hormones, or go to another practice to make sure that you are getting the right information. I mean, your magazine and website is incredible and packed with information on so many different things, including obviously the menopause and perimenopause. There's a whole section, it is absolutely incredible, and so much real insight and expert advice, trusted advice as well, which is on there for people to go and check out. One of the things that I think of when I think of you, Liz, is the word kind. And you said it earlier, but I think everything that you're about, it's about kindness, whether it's kindness to your skin, to your body, to the people, to everything. Do you think, and do you feel that is part of you, to spread kindness? It just comes from you.
Well, I've never kind of put it into words like that. But one of the things I've always said to my children actually is always be a bit kinder than necessary, because kindness costs nothing. It comes back to you. The world needs to be a kinder place. And why not be kind when you can be anything? Be kind. And if not, I think you are in danger of ending up sad, bitter, lonely. And that's, I actually feel very sorry for some of those kind of online trolls and people who do indulge in bullying of other women, because I think actually you can't be a very happy person. You know, where do you let the joy flourish if you're being overtaken by negativity? Even if it's sort of imperceptible, it's still there within you. So, you know, be kind to others. And it's also a way of being kind to yourself. And actually, as I said before, you know, let's leave the world a better place. Otherwise, why are we here in the first place?
So true. Absolutely so true. And just before we finish up, you know, what are your pillars of health? Like, what are your go-tos when you need a bit of calm for yourself? Yeah. What do you reach for? What do you practice?
Fundamentally, sleep is number one. You know, yes, we run on estrogen. So of course I have my HRT and my estrogen as well, but, you know, but sleep. So I protect my sleep. I used not to think about it so much. Now I don't so much set an alarm for when I need to get up. I set an alarm for when I need to go to bed. So it reminds me not to stay up late, not to do my doom scrolling, to turn off my screens, to take my magnesium, to make sure that, you know, my room is nice and cool, not too hot. So sleep fundamentally is an absolute pillar and a priority. And if you're not getting a good night's sleep, there are so many great apps, there are so many resources out there to help you get a good sleep routine going. Gut health, obviously I've written lots of books on gut health. So we do have to look after our little gut bugs so they can look after us better. So I have a lot of probiotic and prebiotic foods. I make kefir, I have live yogurt, I have a bit of kimchi now and then, drink kombucha, you know, simple stuff, but it all makes a difference. My absolutes we talked about before, weights, lifting weights, taking a bit of exercise, stretching out, movement of any kind, and getting outside. I try and see the first light of day that I try and make natural daylight. So before turning on a light bulb, before turning on my screens, I go and either look out of the window if I'm traveling, or I physically go and stand outside, even if it's standing on the pavement, and just get a bit of that natural sun's daylight, because especially first thing, the sun emits a different form of radiation. You're getting more near infrared. That's targeting our circadian rhythms. It's setting us up for the day. It's having an impact on our mitochondria, our DNA, our cellular health. So simple things, and drink loads of water. I guess that would be the other one.
Oh, Liz, I could have kept you here all day. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me and to get your expert advice.
It's so lovely to be here and to have the chance to chat and spread the word. Peri Power.
Peri Power indeed. Absolutely. We'll be Peri pushers together. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to keep up with Liz on Instagram, then you can follow her at Liz Earle Wellbeing. You can also head over to the website www.lizearlewellbeing.com. For more wellbeing, fashion and beauty, you can visit us at our website www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page or subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. This is a brand new season, guys, so do feel free to leave us your rates and reviews, and also drop us a message at our Instagram page at Official Capsule. We want a lot more activity this season, so feel free to let us know what you're thinking, post some questions. We're there for it. I'm going to be back next week with another very special guest, but all that's left for me to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Liz.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening.
And goodbye from me. This episode of The Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by Harrogate Spring Water. Bottled at source, Harrogate Spring offers a pure, refreshing taste with a delicate blend of naturally occurring minerals and electrolytes, perfect for healthy hydration. Healthy hydration. Healthy hydration.